Love me 2 times, baby. Love me twice today. Love me 2 times, girl. I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, girl. 1 for tomorrow, 1 just for today. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away. Love me 1 time, could not speak. Love me 1 time, yeah, my knees got weak. Love me 2 times, girl. Lost me all through the week. Love me 2 times, I've gone away. Love me 2 times, I've gone away. Oh, yeah! Love me 1 time, could not speak. Love me 1 time, baby. Yeah, my knees got weak. Love me 2 times, girl. Lost me all through the week. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, babe. Love me twice today. Love me 2 times, babe. 'Cause I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, girl. 1 for tomorrow, 1 just for today. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away.
We want to say good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Very few of you personally in the room, but many of you, we hope, virtually joining us on Zoom. My name is Alex Maragos. I work here at Channel 5 here in Chicago, and I am so honored to be tonight's MC for the 16th Ring Lardner Awards for Excellence in Journalism, benefiting the Union League Boys and Girls Club. Of course, it's been a very strange year and a half that we've all been in or 2 years since I guess we've last been together here at the Union League Club. And we very much look forward to being back with everyone in person in the big room upstairs, celebrating the very best in sports journalism in this country. Now, the Ring Lardner Awards, in case some of you are not familiar, they honor broadcasters and writers who exemplify the wit and the warmth of Lardner's writing. Ring Lardner had a massive following that ascended with the newspaper industry in general, right at the very into the beginning of the 20th century. He was a sports writer, a humorist, a satirist. He wrote short stories. Writing was how he paid his bills and how he was able to most express himself in a very interesting time when America was becoming what it is today and when sports was first entering the collective psyche of our country. And so it's very fitting that Ring, who was born in Michigan and wrote for many years here in Chicago, is still being honored to this day with examples of excellence in his name every year. So thank you once again for being with us tonight. You probably have a lot going on in your lives, and so we're so excited that you're here with us, even though it is virtually. We're celebrating journalists tonight in 3 categories: broadcast, Dan Roan; print, Tony Giannetti; and posthumously, Cooper Rollo. Now Dan and Tony and the family of Cooper have waited a very, very long time for this, of course, because the pandemic delayed them. So they should be commended not only for their excellence in what they've done over the years, but also for their patience in accepting this amazing award. Now, during the evening, you're going to hear the honorees and their acceptance speeches. You're going to hear commentary from the award presenters, and really special treat, I think, this year, a special panel discussion with the honorees and presenters. They're going to share some amazing stories, and that's my favorite part of this event every year, is the stories that we get to hear coming out of this night. And there are plenty this year. And in that talk toward the end of the program tonight, you're going to hear some great stories from the past, and you might just hear a big scoop for what's to come. So that's a very special component we're excited about. And now I would like to introduce Terry Hendrickson to come up and give us all an update on the Union League Boys and Girls Club. Terry.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Terry Hendrickson, and I'm a trustee of the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs and a member of the steering committee for this event. Since its founding back in 1919, the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs have been serving youth in some of the most challenged neighborhoods in Chicago, providing quality program focused on 3 major areas: academic success, good character and citizenship, and healthy lifestyles. Today, Union League Boys and Girls serves over 15,000 youth members at 10 well-equipped and professionally staffed inner-city clubs that bring effective after-school programming to youth in Pilsen, Westtown, Humboldt Park, Bucktown, South Lawndale, and Englewood communities. In addition to these club sites, the nonprofit Union League Boys and Girls also serves court-detained youth assigned to Chicago's Juvenile Temporary Detention Center and manages its own 240-acre summer camp in southern Wisconsin. This spring, we are very proud to announce that we will be opening 7 new additional club-based sites on Chicago's west and south sides. This expansion will enable the organization to serve an estimated additional 770 youth, while also generating some 40 full-time and part-time jobs, many to be filled by members of the communities. Union League Boys and Girls Clubs is part of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, a nationwide organization with over 4,700 clubs and 4.6 million members. While there are many other fine Boys and Girls Club organizations in and around Chicago, we believe Union League Boys and Girls is truly unique. I wish to remind you at this point that you can continue to support our Boys and Girls Clubs by making a donation. We have put a link in the chat box for this purpose. Alex mentioned earlier that this is the 16th Ring Lardner Awards ceremony. A gentleman named Chris Boas, who started this event back in 2002, was not only a sports buff, but a big supporter of Union League Boys and Girls Clubs. When he brought the event over to the Union League from the Chicago Athletic Association, he knew right away that he wanted to make this a development opportunity for the organization. Sadly, Chris Boas passed away this past year, so we will be paying a special tribute to him later in the program. You may have also noticed in our welcoming PowerPoint presentation, we acknowledged the passing of Jeannie Morris last year as well. She was a past Ring Lardner honoree and a contributor to our Boys and Girls Clubs. With that, I'll turn things back over to Alex.
Thank you, Terry. So the updates that Terry provided are, of course, so exciting. It's great to hear about that expansion. And please stay tuned for that special tribute to Chris. He has given so much over the years to make this event really what it is today. Before we get to our presenters and the honorees tonight, we do have to thank a few people. The Ring Lardner Events Committee, co-chairs, Paul Shade, George Maragos, and Terry Hendrickson, Lisa Shade, Kevin Rosenberg, and Aboira Irudamon. Sorry about that. And Louis Roebling as well. The Ring-Lardner Selection Committee, including the past co-chairs, Chris Bohus and Susan Prather, for the time and dedication in determining who the honorees are. Every year, it's so exciting to see those names come out. Our event sponsors tonight, Bridge Development, the Shade Family Foundation, George and Donna Maragos, Corin Morrissey, First Midwest Bank, Venture One Real Estate, and CBRE. And also the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs and Union League Club leadership helping with tonight in a huge way. Marianne Mann-Hewells, President and CEO, Cynthia Doherty, Board President, Mark Tunney, who's the Union League Club General Manager, and Nancy Ross, the ULC Board President. And do not forget, please, about the great silent auction that we have tonight. It's open until 8:30 tonight, so you still have some time, so keep making those bids. It opened up a little bit earlier, so I saw some activity this morning, which was great. Hopefully that continued throughout the day, but please, it should be very easy on whatever next window you probably have open right now on the computer at home. Head on over to the silent auction, and you could also donate as well on that same page. And we do have that link in case you don't have it in the chat box right now in the Zoom. All right, so over the years, we, of course, many of you who know have been here over the years, we've had some amazing honorees and presenters. Just to name a few, Harry Carey, Mike Ditka, Ron Santo, I remember Pat Hughes not too long ago. And now it is time to see our three presenters, who will be Rich King, Rick Tellender, and Mike Conklin, and the patient honorees that they are speaking about, joining this great group of Ring-Lardner Award winner recipients. Let's get to the main attraction.
Good evening, and welcome to the Ring-Lardner Virtual Awards Ceremony for Excellence in Sports Journalism, benefiting the Union League Boys and Girls Club. Our first award is the Ring-Lardner Broadcast Award.
If you don't have a ticket for tonight's game, you can consider yourself fortunate for a couple of different reasons. One, you're not going to get wet. It looks like it's going to rain. And two, you'll have the benefit of Channel 9's coverage tonight. 11 cameras will document what happens at Wrigley Field in this game. And one of those is down at Harry Carey's restaurant, where our Bob Jordan is standing by. Robert.
Well, you know, you passed MJ here. You had 40 points in the second half. That's an all-time franchise record.
Do not compare me to him, man. I don't want to be compared to him.
I'm not comparing you. I'm just saying you passed
me.
Well, you were pretty good today.
Jawan Howard, the pride of Chicago Vocational, an admitted Cub fan who knows that in this World Series, good guys definitely wear black. I know you're pulling for the White Sox.
Oh, absolutely, I'm pulling for the White Sox.
Phil Bradley hit the first nighttime home run, but Ryan Sandberg hit the first Cub nighttime home run, and Mark Lohendorf caught it. How'd you make the play, Mark?
Also, we'll be introducing you to one of the coolest golf tournaments on the planet. So stick around, everybody, for Dan and Steve's Big Icelandic Adventure coming up next.
Well, it's a real honor for me to present this Ring-Lardner Award to Dan Roan. We worked together for 24 years. It has to be a record in Chicago sportscasting history. 24 years, a long time in our business. But since this is a writing award, I want to talk about Dan Roan, the writer, first, and then Dan Roan, the person. When I first started at WGN back in 1991, I prided myself as a good writer. And when Dan was off on a weekend, I'd meander over his desk now and see things. And one time I saw a script on his desk for a pregame show. It was a NBA scouting report on the Philadelphia 76ers, I believe. And I glanced over the copy, and it was 4 pages long, about 4 minutes long, which is an eternity in our business. And I sat down and read it, and I could not believe how great it was. It was the words were put together so well. The research he did on that team was up to date. It was an informational kind of approach, and well done. It was a great writing job. So I try to get better. He actually inspired me to get better in my writing. And those games back then, we had pregame shows, and the Bulls and the White Sox and Cubs, and those were ad-lib shows, half-hour ad-lib shows. And I see Dan doing them, and he did a great job. It's easy when it's scripted on a prompter. Very difficult to ad-lib for a half hour. It can expose you as a broadcaster, and only exposed Dan Roan as a great broadcaster, and he did a great job on that. And I try to emulate him in every way possible. But Dan Roan, the person, you could not be work for a better guy. He helped me in so many ways, and I personally, my late wife had some issues, Maggie, medically. He stepped in, got doctors for us. That's the kind of guy he is. He's a caring person. He never interfered too much. He guided me a little bit, but never stepped on anything, which in our business, our competitive business is pretty special. Never had a hard word in 24 years together that I can recall. So if anybody deserves this, it's Dan Roan, the Ring Lardner Award. So Dan, a big congratulations to you.
Well, thank you very much, Rich, and thanks to the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs for even considering me for an honor like this. For a kid from Keokuk, Iowa, to be among these legends and having had the opportunity to work alongside and with many of them, it's a very humbling experience for sure. Great to be in a class with Tony and Coop. Tony's been the Swiss Army knife for most of the years I've been in Chicago over at the Sun-Times, and Coop is a friend and neighbor, a terrific writer. His daughter Carol and my wife Debbie are very close friends, so I knew him very well. As most of us in my particular demographic can tell you, time races by very quickly. I'm almost to 40 years now in Chicago. I've seen everybody win, with the Cubs getting one in 2016. That in itself is amazing, I guess. And for a kid who fell asleep summer nights listening to Harry Carey call Cardinals broadcasts, and then to wind up being Harry's color analyst at times, and even filling in for him on Cubs broadcasts on WGN, nobody would have believed it, especially me. WGN has taken me to assignments across the globe. My wife, Debbie, would always be holding down the fort back at home with our three boys, Matt, Andy, and Jace. She's an angel on earth. So I thank her. I thank the kids for giving me so many excused absences over the years. I love them and their wives, and of course our grandkids all very much. The same for everybody who's either walked beside me or stood behind me at WGN. Everybody in this room knows the value of teamwork, and everything we do at GN is a team effort. So a big piece of this award goes out to them as well. Finally, a special thank you to Paul Davis, who was my news director at WGN, and before that at WCIA in Champaign. He's the only guy who ever hired me for a job. Those are the two jobs I've had in my career. So you have him to blame for that. Actually, it's very sad that Paul passed away last week after a long battle with cancer. So if you have an extra moment, say one for him. Thanks again to the committee for considering me, to my coworker and compadre, Rich King. Next year, I hope we flip the script and I'm presenting Rich for this award. He's had an extraordinary career as well. For now, though, I'm happy and humbled to accept the Ring Lardner Award for 2021.
The Ring Lardner Print Award.
First off, let me say this is a beautiful name, Antoinette Giannetti. I love the way it rolls off the tongue, and the beauty of it is the beautiful name describes a beautiful woman, Toni Giannetti, our beloved sports writer, who will be, I'm very honored to present her as the 2020-21 sports writing winner, the Ring Lardner Hall of Fame, if you will. And I know how much it means to her too, a huge amount. But Toni is, sure, she was a pioneer. She was a woman in a man's world, but that was never her goal, never her demeanor to make this some kind of crazy statement. She started out, she went to Northwestern University, she graduated, she was in Medill School of Journalism. She started at the Daily Herald, was there from until 1981. She was there for 9 years. And then she came to the mighty Chicago Sun-Times, the beloved Sun-Times, where she worked until 2014. She retired, but actually I know that Toni was doing work for the Sun-Times after that, because when they needed to fill in, you could call her and she'd leave her beloved dogs. So kind to those dogs that she would go to the ballpark. Because Toni was a person who had begun with covering basketball. She had her own college basketball column in the Sun-Times. DePaul became her kind of mainstay. And the thing about Toni, the beautiful person, the beautiful name, was that people liked her that she wrote about. It wasn't that she was always, you know, milk toast, soft. She was tough. She could ask the right questions, but she did it with such a decency that people like Ray Meyer, great old coach at DePaul, became her good buddies. He knew she would write whatever, but they just liked Tony. When she moved on from DePaul and then became essentially the Cubs and White Sox swing hitter, back and forth between those two teams for many years, everybody in the clubhouse knew her. Everybody on the teams knew her. Her writing was crisp. It was precise. It was accurate. It was on deadline. And you could say, well, hey, you're a woman. What do you know about baseball? And Tony would say, well, you know, listen, yeah, I wasn't a star player in college or anything like that, but I played softball when I was a kid. And you know what? It's not rocket science. And it's not. What is rocket science is being able to do it accurately, fairly, concisely, and on deadline, always on deadline, and get it in and get the news and do it the right way. And Tony always did that. She had a simple decency that I think people understood along with her writing. There may have been a lot of people, they saw the byline, Tony Giannetti. I don't know if that's a male or a female. It didn't matter. Tony's work was professional. It was wonderful. I always loved to read Tony in the paper. And what she did for years and years with all of these different people around her, including her mentor and good buddy, Bill Jouse, also a Ring Lardner member. And Jousey would plow a path through, it didn't matter what. He was an old offensive lineman. Tony'd be right behind, but the two of them, you'd see them often. It was wonderful. She was on the Sports Writers on radio with that original old group, Bill Gleason, Jousey, Ben Bentley, George Langford, while then Tony would be the voice, the feminine voice, if you will. But that was never what it was about. Tony was a writer, a sports writer, a great one, a terrific one. Here's the thing about her. I said she was nice, decent. She had this empathy. She didn't have this attitude that, well, frankly, a lot of writers do. You know, macho, whatever they're doing, carrying this narcissistic attitude around with them. Tony would come to the ballpark, and you couldn't wait for her to get there because she would bring a fresh tin or pan filled with fresh baked brownies, cookies, oatmeal cookies, chocolate chip cookies are the best. And who are they for? They're for everybody. Even the guards. The guards loved her at Old Comiskey and U.S. Cellular and Guaranteed Rate Field and at Wrigley, of course. They knew her. Everybody knew and liked Tony because she was such a pro. And we couldn't wait for those brownies and stuff. And I asked Tony, I said, you know, why? Nobody else is doing anything that decent, that kind and considerate. She said, I don't know. I guess maybe it's just the Italian in me. She loves to cook. Both her parents were born in Italy. Tony is just a person that was so decent, so beautiful. But those weren't the things that made her worthy of being in the Ring Lardner circle of honor, if you will. It's that she was such a great professional, a great writer, doing what was needed to be done, carrying that torch, sports writing down the hallway. And I tell you, the one thing that breaks my heart is that we're not doing this in person with a big banquet, because Tony would be there and she would be beaming. Nobody would be happier than her, and rightfully so. Even good old Ring Lardner himself he would cheer her entrance into this Hall of Fame in his name, if only cheering were allowed in the press box.
I want to thank the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs of Chicago. I'm sorry we couldn't be together for this event, because not just for those of us who are participating, but I know it's a big fundraiser for the organization. And as someone who's done work with special needs children through pet therapy, I know how important it is to support our young people. So hopefully that'll continue once we can get back to a little bit of normal in our lives. I want to congratulate Dan Roan, of course, and the family of Cooper Rollo. I've known Dan for so long, and it's very special to be in the inductee class with them. Dan and I have worked together for a lot of years. Our paths have crossed on our very various beats. So I know he's very deserving, and I just want to congratulate him and the family of Cooper Rollo. No one gets to have a career like ours without the love and support of their family. And I'd like to thank mine. My dad was an immigrant to this country who loved the written word and he loved history. My mom was actually the sports lover in the family, and she's the one who sort of nurtured my family's love of sports. And I want to thank my sisters, my sister Louisa, who's the other journalist in the family, and my sister Nancy, who actually is the one who introduced me to Ring Lardner. She was taking a college course on sports and literature, and she said, "You've got to read this book, You Know Me, Al," by Ring Lardner. That was the first time I ever heard his name, and it just shows you how funny and serendipitous life can be. I think about the people who have won this award in the past, and I've worked with so many of them, and I was always really privileged to work in their shadows, so to speak, and I respected them so much as my colleagues. People like Rick Tellender and Bill Jouse and Fred Mitchell and Paul Sullivan and the late Lacey Banks, who was a colleague at the Sun-Times, along with Taylor Bell and Ray Sons. And Mike Downey, who I got to know when he was not only working in Los Angeles, but when he came back to work in Chicago. And the late Jerome Holtzman, who was the dean of baseball. We all knew him that way. And Ron Rappaport, who was another colleague of mine. And Bob Verdi, who I respected so much too. It's just such an honor to be considered in their ranks. I'm really humbled by it. And I really want to thank the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs of Chicago once again. Thank you so much.
The Ring Lardner Posthumous Award. A proud Kansas native, Cooper Rollo was born in Wichita in 1925. Upon graduating high school, he honorably served in General George Patton's 3rd United States Army, after which he attended Kansas University. There he earned his degree in journalism, and so his long, distinguished career and legacy began. He launched his journalism career in his home state of Kansas at the Fort Scott Tribune, shortly after moving to the Lincoln Journal in Nebraska and finally accepting a position in Illinois with the Chicago Tribune. The rest, as they say, was history, and so he launched his dynamic 35-year stay with the Tribune. Rollo served as sports editor from 1965 to 1977, covering the very first Super Bowl and going on to cover 31 more. He was a founding member of the Pro Football Writers of America, and throughout his decorated career, Rollo received numerous awards, notably including the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Dick McCann's Memorial Award, the Illinois Associated Press Sports Writer of the Year in 1961, among many others. Cooper Rollo's words touch the hearts and minds of not only the people of Chicago, but throughout the entire United States. He will be remembered for his awe-inspiring legacy in journalism and in the sports world. Thank you, Cooper. Tonight, we honor you.
For Chicago newspapers in the 1960s into the early 90s, we experienced a golden era for print journalism before technology took over. You were especially fortunate if you were a Tribune sports writer. The department had a big budget, spent it, and had plenty of space to display the results. The sports department is loaded with legendary figures, starting with Ring Lardner in the early years. It was not unusual that on a football Saturday, the Tribune staffed as many as a half dozen games with its own people. Sometimes 2 writers at one contest, with a staff photographer. Many of those writers went on to cover a professional football game the next day, and this was just talking football. Not only did the Tribune cover many other sports, the Tribune Charities created and sponsored sporting events that generated millions of dollars for good causes. The first baseball all-star game, the Golden Gloves boxing tournament that produced Muhammad Ali winning his first national title in Chicago, the late college football all-star game, and the silver football, the silver basketball, silver skates, fishing derbies. The list goes on and on. And ruling over this big-time Tribune-inspired charitable competition were iconic sports figures such as Arch Ward, Wilfred Smith, George Strickler, and leading to tonight's posthumous Ring Lardner winner, Cooper Rollo, who just for good measure also oversaw the merger of the Chicago Today sports department into his department. Cooper, or Coop, had a 35-year career at the Tribune, and 8 of those years he was sports editor, stretching into the late 1970s. In the minds of many, he was the last in the Tribune's long line of nationally influential sports editors who also regularly wrote prize-winning copy, all while managing a department of up to 60 staffers. In Cooper's case, professional football was his specialty. He was a founding member of the Pro Football Writers Association, as well as a pioneer in helping establish the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He covered the first and following 31 consecutive Super Bowls. As the Bears and pro football emerged as automatic page one material in the 1950s, Cooper was there as a trailblazer. His calls to George Halas, Pete Rozelle, Vince Lombardi never went unanswered. But he was first and foremost a versatile reporter. And nothing proved that more than his coverage of the 1972 Olympics and the slaughter of those Israeli athletes in Munich. He and co-worker Bob Marcus were there to cover the games, but jumped immediately into action and provided excellent on-the-spot coverage of news for the Tribune of this horrendous story. You had to look no farther than page 1 and the lead sentence of this breaking story to know that he was up to the task. Quote, "The Olympic ideal of peace and friendship was drowned in a river of blood today when 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team were massacred by Arab guerrillas in a day-long reign of terror." Like many journalists he hired, Cooper arrived at the Tribune after several years working on smaller Midwestern newspapers, in this case, in his native Kansas and then Nebraska. He took a spot on the Tribune copy desk, worked late shifts and weekends editing copy before covering pro football, eventually got named assistant sports editor, and then was elevated to the head job. Cooper was loyal to the craft of journalism, the Tribune, and the colleagues alongside him who practiced it. He helped launch careers for former staffers such as Don Pearson, Bob Verdi, Fred Mitchell, Neil Milbert, and myself. He was unselfish and understanding as a boss. Every year, he and his wife, Marge, a high school teacher, threw a staff party at their Elmhurst home. For those who knew him best, he also had a great sense of humor, almost always with a touch of wit. You knew that if you were there the day one of the city room editors brought a group of visitors through the Tribune sports department on a tour. Coop, spotting them through the window of his office, came bursting out of his door, waving a fistful of papers and shouting as loud as he could, "Copy, copy, I've got a story that'll break this town wide open." Well, you can imagine with the gap, the smiles and the expressions that it drew from the visitors. This was right out of Ben Heck's front page, of course. The visitors were stunned. Coop, though, was a straightforward writer, straight down the line. Facts mattered with Cooper, clear and readable. He never used 2 words if one would do, and probably would be aghast at my presentation right here. Consider this. When Cooper made the official introduction of Walter Payton to the Pro Football Hall of Fame admission committee, he bypassed the usual long gas bag speeches his sports writing peers typically made in nominating their hometown heroes. Coop simply stood and said, "Let me present Walter Payton." Then he sat down. No other words were necessary. So tonight, in a more roundabout way, let me present Cooper Rollo for the annual posthumous Ring Lardner Award.
Congratulations to our 2021 Ring Lardner honorees.
Wonderful awards presentation, great speeches by the presenters and the honorees. We told you you'd hear some stories tonight, and those were excellent stories all the way through, from Dan, Tony, and Mike presenting for Cooper. So another congratulations again, Dan Roan, Tony Giannetti, and Cooper Rollo, and a big thanks as well to our presenters. It's good to hear their stories as well. Rich King, Rick Tallender, and Mike Conklin. Before we move on tonight, I do want to remind all of our guests the silent auction will be open until 8:30 tonight. You can share that link. That should be in the chat box. It's been put there already. You don't, also, here's an important thing. You don't have to be in this Zoom in order to bid. So you can send it to friends, you can text it to them, you can email it, forward it. Please let them know. Anybody can bid or donate tonight. So please forward it on to people who might be interested. And there are some excellent items as well. So you can share the link to as many people as you like. And the same goes for making a donation, of course. Anybody who has any amount they're willing to give to the Union League Boys and Girls Clubs would, of course, be very appreciated as well. And the auction and donation page, they are on the same link. So there's not two different links that you have to keep track of. Very easy to navigate. All right, now here's what is really special, even though we cannot be all together in one room this year, unfortunately, with the big party that Rick mentioned in his presentation speech. It is fun, and I would like to, I guess, thank ahead of time or after time, I'm not really sure because it already happened, but I'm about to introduce it, the wonderful panel discussion that was put together between our honorees and presenters. You're going to hear some great stories in here as well, so please enjoy.
Here we are, beginning the 16th, almost annual Ring Lardner Awards for sports writing, sportscasting excellence, sports journalism excellence in Chicago, and actually nationally. Have 4 very esteemed guests here: Dan Roan, Rich King, Tony Giannetti, and Mike Conklin, who will be speaking about Cooper Rollo, who the late Cooper Rollo, the great sports writer for the Chicago Tribune. And we're just going to kind of jawbone a lot of this stuff. And I know that's something we're all very good at. But Mike, let me start with you, since Cooper isn't here. Tell us a little bit about him. And also then perhaps we can hear a little bit about the thoughts about Ring Lardner himself as a person.
Cooper was kind of one of the last of the big time sports editors at the Tribune when the sports kind of ruled. And he followed like George Strickler and Wilford Smith and people like that. And I mean, the thing is, the Tribune was really a big deal in the 60s, 70s, 50s. I mean, they invented the all-star football game. They invented the all-star baseball game. I mean, they really played a role. And when Cooper was there, they still had the all-star football game. And very few people recall that one. But and they had all these other things like Golden Gloves he was in charge of as a sports editor. And so, I mean, he was really like a CEO of a company in many ways.
Following your story, Mike, yeah, well, Cooper Rollo, a great guy. You know, I didn't know him all that well, but Dan, did you know him? If you didn't know Cooper Rollo, what was the influence that you feel? What do you know, or what did you think about Ring Lardner and his relationship to Chicago, perhaps?
Well, with regard to Cooper, he lived around the corner from me, so he's my neighbor. His daughter and my wife are dear friends, so I've known him for a long time and known him pretty well. Walking encyclopedia of the Bears-Packers rivalry, and a guy who up to the time he retired, I think, attended every single Super Bowl.
One thing I know about Ring Lardner, Ernest Hemingway was a big fan. And yeah. I think, Lardner, like Cooper Rollo, was a very versatile guy. I mean, he wrote You Know Me, Al. I mean, he could write in dialect. He did things that hadn't been done in sports writing. And, you know, Tony, you covered so much baseball and, of course, DePaul basketball. Everybody loved you. I loved you. We still love you. As I said, you have
not everybody. Don't paint that picture. I had people yell.
Well, you could be tough and hardcore. I mean, you went after people. I know that. And there's some people who, when you write the truth about them, they don't necessarily love you for a while, but they know if you're being fair. But tell us just a little bit about your career and covering sports in Chicago.
I came from news side, and I worked for a long time city side, kind of doing, general assignment stuff, but also investigative stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I kind of wanted to move into sports, and I don't know if I should be telling, I guess we could tell tales out of school, right?
Well, you're going to say word.
When Rupert Murdoch bought the Sun-Times, it was a very sad time. And I knew I didn't want to work on the news side in that kind of environment, in what the Rupert Murdochs kind of brought to the paper. But so this is what happened. We were at a, I think it was like a Christmas party or something. And Mike Royko, they let me help cover the '84 Cubs when they were doing well with all the sidebar stories. And so Royko would be at those games, you know what I mean? And he was a big Cubs fan. And so we're at this, I don't know, it was like I think it was a holiday party at the end of in December-ish. And I'm talking to Mike, and he's there, and the managing editor of the Sun-Times comes over. Now, Mike had already left for the Tribune. And he says to this managing editor, "When are you going to move her into sports?" And the managing editor kind of was taken aback, and he goes, "Oh, well, is that really what you want to do?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And Mike says, "Quit stalling. Why don't you just move her into sports?" And the next week, I was moved into the sports department.
That's amazing, Tony. Yeah, it was all done in dialect, and there were so many things in sports to be mined yet. And you coming from reporting and investigative work, you'd won some, some awards for that. That was a real key change, I think, at that moment. And to me, Ring Lardner is just a mythical character. I never knew him. What a great name. How many people are named?
You went to high school with him.
Anybody know him? Any of you ever seen him other than Tony?
It was Ringgold, yeah.
There are several generations of him too.
In my I saw that he was described as a bitter satirist, and I thought, well, he was working in the right town.
Yeah.
But Dan, I wanted to ask you quickly about your career and how it changed from what you started doing when you got into TV early on, and how it progressed into where it is now, covering sports.
Well, my first job was in Champaign. I was the Decatur Bureau for WCIA in Champaign. They gave me 2 film cameras and said, "Cover Decatur." So that's what I did for 6 or 7 months, maybe the worst 6 or 7 months of my whole life. But eventually they let me do weekend sports after a month or two. And then the sportscaster who was in charge there left, and I took his job, and then just kind of went from there. But, I was thinking about all the stuff, and this goes for all of us, that we've covered over the years. I mean, I called a Mike Tyson fight with Ben Bentley sitting next to me at Alumni Hall at the Paul one time.
My camera guy and I were dear close friends, 24 years, Richard Isaac. And of course, we were sometimes just, being guys as we never communicated that well. So we rented a car, and for some reason we had different flights. I had an earlier flight, I had a later flight. And it was snowing, big snow mounds everywhere, and football game. And I told Mike, I said, "Well, you leave early, and if you don't take the car, leave the keys at the front desk, and I'll take the car, rent a car, man." So I takes off, I get up, I check with the desk, there's no keys. There's no keys. That's why I figured I took the car, right? So I get a cab, I get to the airport and fly back to Chicago. I think about 3 months later, the Gloria Brown, who was a financial consultant there, comes up to me and says, "What happened to your car? I just got a bill here from the rent-a-car company for jillions of dollars. It was sitting in the parking lot for 3 months under a snowdrift." So the company, I seen each other like 16,000 times in those 3 months. Never once did any of us say, "Hey, what about the car?" we assumed I assumed I took it. He assumed I took it. And the company made a deal, thank goodness, and got out of it. But I was worried they dock our pay for it or something. But it was a great experience working with them.
Tell rental car stories forever. Tony, you got one?
Rick, Dan and I, Dan introduced me to broadcast journalism briefly,
so to speak.
You could start the story, and then I'll fill it, because it has to do with snowfalls too.
Yeah, well, I'm doing a DePaul Cincinnati basketball game in Cincinnati. John Mengelt and I are doing the game. Mm-hmm. Mengie missed his flight. The weather was bad, and Tony was covering for the Sun-Times. And so Arnie Harris, who, he acts on a whim. He's producing.
He sure does.
walked up to me and said, "Oh, it's a Monday." He said, "Saturday." He goes, "You're doing play-by-play on the Notre Dame Purdue football game." I said, "Doing what?" I had no idea what he was talking about. That's the way he operated. So he comes up to Tony, says, "Tony, why don't you jump in there and do color for the first 10 minutes?" We wait to go up. So
All right.
me and Tony are at the mic doing play-by-play of the Paul Cincinnati game.
I swear it must have been 10 or 15 minutes before you were going to go on the air. And Arnie's there. And I said, "Oh, Arnie, you should just let me do the color with Dan." And he looks, and I was joking. And he says,
Don't ever joke.
"No, why don't you? You could do it." And I realize he's serious. And he says, and I said, "Well, gee, Arnie, I don't know, because I'll have to have a I got a deadline after. I don't know if I could do it." He said, just do the intro with us. And then he says, "I'll get you some money for it." I had to pay you for it. And I said, "Well, okay." And I think Dan and I just stood there for a couple minutes and talked to each other. And we did the opening, and the game starts, and we're 5 minutes into the game. And thankfully, I knew a lot about DePaul, and I knew enough about Cincinnati, and I was the coach then. So after the first timeout, Mengelt shows up, and so he takes over. It was fun. Now afterward, I found out from one of the women at GN, who was one of the producers. She said, "Oh, you won't believe this. This is so funny." They gave me a copy of the tape, right, to keep. And sure enough, later I got a check from WGN.
Yeah.
But she tells me, "You'll never guess what happened. We started getting phone calls saying, 'Why did you take the woman off? Why don't you leave her on?'"
Tony, this is a lost opportunity. All you guys, and I know you've done some TV too, Mike, I think, but you guys in TV, you just let that slide by, that great talent, Tony Giannetti.
Yeah.
You got her 15 minutes.
WGN was good about paying. I did a Phil Jackson show one time, and on the way out, they hand me a box that's got a color TV in it. It's pretty nice. I like that. I'd take whatever they gave. Mike, did you ever do TV at all?
This is probably off color and it'll get edited out, but this one guy had this great big huge, and I don't know what it was from. It must have been Halloween pickle, and I mean it was as phallic as it looks, as it sounds. And he started walking in the background while somebody was doing a stand-up from that newsroom, and he kept walking back and forth. And that clip became legendary at the Tribune.
Well, when you put a newsroom in the middle of anything and people standing on the street, they want that
Oh,
scene.
yeah.
Well, there are clowns everywhere who are gonna, come up and wave, say hi, Mom, and hold the John 3:16 signs. You two real TV guys there, Rich and Dad. What was the most embarrassing situation you ever had, if you can think of one quickly, that when you were on air?
Mine's easy.
My WGP wasn't so good. Where I was covering a tennis tournament at the Pavilion, and John McEnroe was playing somebody, and I'm up on the catwalk trying to do a live shot. We got the light on, and all of a sudden he turns around and looks up there and points at the official and says, turn that light off," which also happened in the 1990 All-Star game. We were doing a live shot on the rooftop across from left field, and the umpires had to stop the game and get somebody over there to tell us.
You're so obnoxious, so pushy.
Yeah.
What's good? Rich, what about you?
Well, mine's easy because mine went viral. I was interviewing Matt Forte in a situation where a bunch of people are around him, and I guess a Comcast camera caught me in the background with my tongue. One of these. I was having the mic out, and I was put my tongue out for some reason. I don't know why I was doing it. Nervous reaction, whatever. Well, what they did is they focused, they panned it in, got a tight shot of me doing this. And of course, GNTV, the morning crew picked it up and had a lot of laughs with it. And next morning, my wife wakes me up in bed. She won't believe what happened. you were on the Jimmy Kimmel Show.
Oh,
I got panned locally and panned nationally. You know what? I learned something from that, and that is, first of all, it got my demographics better. Young people are watching Jimmy Kimmel, but you know, you never, in an embarrassing moment, you always ride with it. You never get angry about it. And I made fun of it, made fun of myself, because that's the easiest way to do it.
That's the thing. When you guys do something that's on camera, it never goes away. We hope that if we do make a mistake in print, it's on the bottom of a bird cage eventually, and that's the end of it. You know, you assume it's not going to last forever. You know, I think I got to get to this, Tony.
yeah.
You were in a all male world pretty much. And
Well, yeah, you know, that's always kind of a mistake too, because you guys know there were other women, you know, doing sports for a long time, probably, you know, in different capacities, but I don't know. I guess I just ended up being around more.
listen, I know you took matters into your own hands.
Yeah,
We all
yeah.
know, and started baking cookies and desserts and bringing them to press boxes.
Well,
You're legendary for that.
That's just, you know, that's the ethnic part of me. That's the Italian part.
Yeah.
Like,
So easy, so easy.
we'd be in press boxes, and I'd look around and go.
Right.
On the serious side, around 1988, and I'm at Wrigley Field, and I'm going to cover a game. And Carrie Muscat, who has been a long time, she was a wire service reporter, worked in Minneapolis. Anyway, she's covering the Cubs too. And she says to me, "Well, we've got some new rules." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Scott Sanderson won't talk to us in the clubhouse anymore." And I said, "What do you mean? It's halfway through the season. What did he just decide now?" And she said, "Well," so we talked to the media relations director, who was also a woman, Sharon Panazzo, and she kind of said, "Yeah, I don't know. That's what he said." And I said, "Carrie, how did this come up?" And she said, "Well, I was in the locker room, and we're standing around Scott's locker, and all of a sudden he stops and he looks at me and he says, 'I'll talk to you outside.'" And I said to her, "What did everybody do?" And she said, "They just looked at me, the other reporters, kind of like waiting for her to leave." And I went, "Oh, well, now this is me." I said, "That is totally unacceptable." And I said, we've got to get this straight now, right now. So and I will preface this by saying Scott Sanderson was a great guy.
Yeah.
We became really, you know, he became kind of good friends and everything afterward. And when he passed away a few years ago, it was heartbreaking. But so we go up to Scott, and I said, "Scott," I said, "what is this all of a sudden?" You know, I thought, you know, might as well talk to him about it. And he said, "Well, yeah, I just feel more comfortable talking to you guys outside." And I said, "Scott, you know, we have to be in the clubhouse to interview everybody else." And I'm thinking, you know, just keep your pants on. I mean, I don't know what's bothering you.
You are a troublemaker. You always are. Even those brownies and cookies you always brought, can't smooth that over. You know, the one thing that bonds us all, everybody here, is our love of words and the ability to write. And Rich, I agree with you. The entire profession has in ways been demeaned because there's so many forms of communication now. Everybody is a journalist now, the citizen journalist, and you can find it anywhere, including cameras. You know, a cell phone now can almost do what that giant thing you had to, when you had the snake, you TV guys coming behind you, the sound guy, and all these different things that had to be done, lighting and that. Almost anybody can do that, but it's not good. And so we still talk about quality. We still hope that certain things we do or we did or all of you did. And, you know, Mike, you've done it too for so long, and also, you know, representing Cooper Rallo, that somehow that rose above the ordinary, because somehow the best has to win out. Otherwise, anybody could do this job, and it becomes just a commodity. And I don't think we're there yet. I hope we don't get there. And I think winning the Lardner Award still honors those people who took what we do, somehow sports broadcasting, sports writing, the art of writing. You know, Rich and Dan, you guys wrote. People don't realize you didn't just speak, you wrote your words. So words matter. And, you know, it's a career that we've all had. I think we all should be proud. You guys, I mean, we could go on forever. I know all you, we've all done so many things. The stories could go on, but I want to thank all of you and honestly, Rich, Dan, Tony, and it's so nice, Mike, that you're speaking up for Cooper. It's a wonderful thing at the 16th, we call it annual Ring Lardner Awards for sports writing, sports broadcasting excellence, primarily focused on Chicago, but it's national. We've given it to a lot of national people. It's a very prestigious thing, and you guys are great. It's sad that we don't do this. We'd have to do this virtually. I think we all know this is a year, 2020 and 21, that probably should have an asterisk. Not Roger Maris's record, 61 home runs. So anyway, thank you guys, and I hope we can do this in person where it should be done eventually with a wonderful honors dinner. See everybody would just be great. So I think with that, we will say goodbye to everyone and hope that you all enjoyed it. Love the stories. See you guys down in the locker room.
Such a fun and interesting view into all of these stories. And again, I mentioned the stories probably 5-6 times already tonight, but there are so many that you come away with from all the different presenters and honorees. And like Rick said toward the end, you could just go on and on and on and hear more. So a big thanks to everyone who participated in that, especially Rick for organizing it and getting it together and kind of leading the discussion. It was so great. And we also want to mention too that Peggy Kaczynski, my former colleague at NBC5 and former Ring Lardner honoree just a couple of years ago, she and her son Jason, who's down at the University of Texas in Austin, they have an excellent podcast, The Sportscaster and Her Son, and they were so kind in helping support our honorees and event and the whole event by interviewing Tony and Dan in that podcast. So big thanks to Peggy and Jason for that. And those conversations, the full podcasts are on social media, but they're also, we have the link in the chat box right now tonight. So if you want to check those out, you can. And Peggy does a great job posting them on social media. I catch them on LinkedIn, for example. So if you happen to see it, it's wonderful use of your time, and all of the podcasts are really excellent. So again, thank you. And as we approach the end of the program, we want to give you another reminder, please, to keep making the auction bids until 8:30 tonight. Send it to your friends, send it to your family. Let them know that it's going on so they can support the Union League Boys and Girls Club, and make a donation if you can as well. Every little bit helps. Next, we'd like to bring back up Terry Hendrickson for the tribute to Chris Boas.
Thanks again, Alex. As I mentioned earlier, Chris Boas was co-chair of the Ring Lardner Selection Committee and also a member of the Union League Boys and Girls Club's Event Committee. Chris and a lovely lady named Susan Prather, who helped us with this event again this year, along with a few other individuals, were the founders of the Ring Lardner Awards back in 2002 at the Chicago Athletic Association. After the CAA closed, Chris brought the event over to the Union League Club in 2009, and it has been here ever since, where it has become the basis for an annual fundraiser for our Boys and Girls Club. Chris was also enthusiastic about this event and took time to meticulously manage the selection process and possible nominees for the selection committee to vote on. He took the time to personally reach out to each honoree to let them know they had been chosen for the Ring Lardner Award. Then he would work alongside our Boys and Girls Club staff and event committee to plan and prepare. Chris also played a significant part in the silent auction. His collection of sports memorabilia was endless, and he was always very generous in donating many items personally, as well as reaching out to his network for additional donations. Chris, you are dearly missed, and we hold this event tonight not only to celebrate our honorees, but to salute you and all your efforts, which have helped to make this event the great success it has become. So we give a special thanks to Chris Boas and his deep-seated passion for the Ring Lardner Awards. Alex?
Thank you, Terry. It's very special that we do remember Chris for all of his hard work and dedication to this event and to honorees every year to make sure that it was something special and the honorees felt special and that this all came together for a great cause for the Boys and Girls Club. So the silent auction open till 8:30. You can still make donations. So far tonight, I am happy to share that so far we have raised $16,150 for the Union League Boys and Girls Club. We are trying to get to our goal, which we are very, very close to. So please, if you can, make a donation. Any little bit helps. And if you can, please donate on the silent auction items. We still have a little bit more time before the silent auction ends. So I just want to say a huge thank you to our honorees, our presenters. Of course, there's an added level of difficulty when everything is virtual. So thank you so much for taking the time, and the organizers of tonight, everybody here from the Union League Club, everybody at the Union League Boys and Girls Club that helped tonight to put this whole thing together so we could have a Ring Lardner Awards dinner and celebration for the very deserving honorees and showcasing the best in sports journalism every year. So, and a big, big thanks, of course, to you watching right now and on the Zoom to continue this wonderful tradition that we have here in Chicago. You could be spending your time basically doing anything right now. So the fact that you tune in for the Zoom to join the Ring Lardner Awards means a great deal. Thank you so much. This concludes our program tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you.
Jumping on a trampoline, flipping in the air. I never land, just float there. As I'm looking up, suddenly the sky erupts. Flames that light the trees, spread to fallen leaves. Now they're right upon me. Wait, if I'm on fire, how am I so deep in love? When I dream of dying, I never feel so loved. I've been having dreams, splashing in a summer stream, tripping, I fall in